Ezekiel 40 to 42. In the 25th year out of captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that, the city was struck. In the same day, the hand of Yahweh was on me, and he brought me there. In the visions of God, he brought me into Eretz Yisrael, and set me down on a very high mountain, on which was something like the frame of a city to the south. So he brought me there, and behold, there was a man, whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed. And he stood in the gate. The man said to me, Son of man, see with your eyes, and hear with your ears, and set your heart on all that I will show you. For you have been brought here, so that I may show them to you. Declare all that you see to the house of Israel. Behold, there was a wall on the outer side of the house all around, and in the man's hand a measuring reed, 6 cubits long, of a cubit, and a hand width of each. So he measured the thickness of the building, 1 reed, and the height, 1 reed. Then he came to the gate which he looked toward the east, and went up its steps. He measured the threshold of the gate, 1 reed wide, and the other threshold, 1 reed wide. Every lodge was 1 reed long and 1 reed wide, and between the lodges was 5 cubits. The threshing of the gate by the porch of the gate toward the house was 1 reed. He measured also the porch of the gate toward the house 1 reed. Then he measured his porch, the porch of the gate, 8 cubits, and its posts 2 cubits, and the porch of the gate was toward the house. The lodges of the gate eastward were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. The 3 of them were of 1 measure. The post had 1 measure on this side and that side. He measured the width of the opening of the gate 10 cubits, and the length of the gate 13 cubits, and a border before the lodges, 1 cubit on this side, and a border 1 cubit on that side, and the lodges 6 cubits on this side, and 6 cubits on that side. He measured the gate from the roof of the one lodge to the roof of the other, a width of 25 cubits, door against door. He also made posts 60 cubits, and the court reached to the posts around the gate. From the forefront of the gate, at the entrance of the forefront of the inner porch of the gate, were 50 cubits. There were closed windows to the lodges, and to their posts within the gate all around. And likewise to the arches, windows were around inward, and on each post were palm trees. Then he brought me into the outer court. Behold, there were rooms and a pavement made for the court all around. 30 rooms were on the pavement. The pavement was by the side of the gates, corresponding to the length of the gates, even the lower pavement. Then he measured the width from the forefront to the lower gate and the forefront of the inner court outside, 100 cubits, both on the east side on the north. He measured the length and its width in the gate of the outer court with faces toward the north. The lodges of it were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. Its posts and its arches were the same as the measure of the first gate. Its length was 50 cubits and width 25 cubits. Its windows, its arches, and its palm trees were the same as the measure of the gate which faces towards the east. They went up to it by 7 steps, and its arches were before them. There was a gate in the inner court facing the other gate, on the north and on the east. He measured 100 cubits from gate to gate. He led me toward the south, and behold, there was a gate toward the south. He measured its posts and its arches according to these measurements. There were windows in it, and they had its arches all around, like those windows. The length was 50 cubits, and the width 25 cubits. There were 7 steps to go up to it. Its arches were before them. It had palm trees on one side, and on the other, and on that side, on its posts. There was a gate to the inner court toward the south. He measured 100 cubits from gate to gate toward the south. Then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate according to these measurements with its lodges, its posts, and its arches, according to these measurements. There were the windows in it, and its arches all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. There were arches all around, 25 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. Its arches were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were on its posts, and the ascent to the hat it had 8 steps. He brought me into the inner court toward the east, and he measured the gate according to these measurements, with its lodges, its posts, and its arches, according to the measurements. There were windows in it, and its arches all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its arches were toward the outer court. Palm trees were on its posts and on the side and on that side, and the ascent to it had 8 steps. Then he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it according to these measurements, its lodges, its posts, its arches. There were windows in it all around. The length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Its posts were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were on its posts, and on this side and on that side. The ascent to it had 8 steps. A room with its door was by the posts of the gates. They washed the burnt offerings there. In the porch of the gate were 2 tables on the side and 2 tables on that side on which to slaughter the burnt offering, the sin offering, and the trespass offering. On the one side outside, as one goes up to the entry of the gate toward the north, there were 2 tables, and on the other side, which belonged to the porch of the gate, were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables on that side, by the side of the gate, 8 tables, on which they slaughtered the sacrifices. There were 4 tables, the burnt offerings, a cut stone, 1.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide, and 1 cubit high. They laid the instruments in which they slaughtered the burnt offerings and the sacrifices on them. The hooks, a handwidth long, were fastened with all around, and all the tables was the meat offerings. Outside the inner gate were rooms for the singers in the inner court, and was on the side of the north gate. They faced toward the south. On the side of the east gate faced toward the north. He said to me, "This room, which faces toward the south, is for the Kohanim, the keepers of the duties of the house. The rooms which face toward the north is for the Kohanim, the keeper of the duty of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who are from the sons of Levi, come near to Yahweh to minister to him." He measured the court 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, square the altar before the house. Then they brought me to the porch of the house and measured each post of the porch, 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on that side. The width of the gate was 3 cubits on this side and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the width of the 11 cubits, even by the steps by which they went up to it. There were the pillars by the post on this side and on the other side. He brought me to the temple and measured the posts 6 cubits wide on the one side and 6 cubits wide on the other side, which was the width of the tent. The width of the entrance was 10 cubits, and the sides of the entrance was 5 cubits on the side, and 5 cubits on the other side. He measured its length 40 cubits, and the width 20 cubits. Then he went inward and measured each post in the entrance 2 cubits, and the entrance 6 cubits, and the width of the entrance 7 cubits. He measured its length 20 cubits, and its width 20 cubits before the temple. He said to me, "This is the most holy place." Then he measured the wall of the house 6 cubits, and the width of every side room 4 cubits, all around the house on every side. The side room were in 3 stories over one another, and 30 in order. They entered into the wall which belonged to the house of the side rooms all around, that they might be supported and not penetrate the wall of the house. The side rooms were wider in the higher levels, because the walls were narrower at the higher levels. Therefore the width of the house increased upward, and so went up from the lowest part to the highest through the middle level. I also saw that the house had a raised base all around. The foundations of the side rooms were full reed of 6 great cubits. The thickness of the wall, which was for the side rooms on the outside, was 5 cubits. That which was left by the side rooms and belonged to the house between the rooms was a width of 20 cubits all around the house on every side. The doors of the side rooms were toward the open area that was left, one door toward the north and another door toward the south, and the width of the open area was 5 cubits all around. The building that was before the separate place at the side toward the west was 70 cubits wide, and the wall of the building was 5 cubits thick all around, and its length 90 cubits. So he measured the house 100 cubits long, and separate place in the building and its walls 100 cubits long. Also the width of the face of the house and the separate place toward the east 100 cubits. He measured the length of the building before the separate place which was at its back, and its galleries on the one side, and on the other side 100 cubits from the inner temple. And on the porches, the court, the threshold, the closing windows, and the galleries all around, there are 3 stories opposite the threshold, with wood ceilings all around, and from the ground up to the window, now the windows were covered, to the space above the door, even in the inner house, outside, and by the wall all around, inside and outside, by measure. And it was made with cherubim, and the palm trees. A palm tree was between cherub, and every cherub had 2 faces, so that there was a face of a man toward the palm tree on one side, and the face of a young lion toward the palm tree on the other side. It was made like this, though all the house all around, cherubim and palm trees, were made from the ground to above the door, and the wall of the temple was like this. As for the temple, the doorposts were squared. As for the face of the sanctuary, its appearance was as the appearance of the temple. The altar was of wood, 3 cubits high, and its length 2 cubits. Its corners, its length, its walls were of wood. And he said to me, "This is the table that is before Yahweh." The temple and the sanctuary had 2 doors. The doors had two leaves each, 2 turning leaves, 2 for one door and 2 leaves for the other. They were made of them, and the doors of the temple, the cherubim and the palm trees, like those were made on the wall. They were the threshold of wood as the face of the porch outside. They were closed windows and palm trees on one side and on the other side, and the side of the porch. This was how the side rooms of the house and the thresholds were arranged. Then he brought me out into the outer court, the way toward the north. Then he brought me into the inner room that was opposite the separate place, and which was opposite the building toward the north. Before the length of 100 cubits was the north door, and the width of 50 cubits. Opposite the 20 cubits which belonged to the inner court, and opposite the pavement which belonged to the outer court, was gallery outside against gallery in the 3rd floor. Before the rooms was a walk of 10 cubits width inward, away 1 cubit, and their doors were toward the north. Now the upper rooms were shorter, for the galleries took away from these, more than from the lower and the middle in the building, for there were 3 stories, and they did not have pillars as the pillars of the courts. Therefore the uppermost part was set back more than the lowest, and the middle from the ground. The walls that were outside by the side rooms toward the outer court before the rooms, its length was 50 cubits, for the length of the rooms that were on the outer court was 50 cubits. Behold, before the temple were 100 cubits. From under these rooms was the entry on the east side, as one goes into them before the outer court, in the thickness of the wall of the court toward the east, before the separate place. And before the buildings there were rooms. The way before them was like the appearance of rooms, which were toward the north, according to their length. So was their width, and all their exits were both according to their fashions, and according to their doors. According to the doors of the rooms that were toward the south was a door at the head of the way directing before the wall toward the east, as one enters into them. Then he said to me, "The north rooms and the south rooms, which are before the separate place, are the holy rooms, where the Kohanim, who are near to Yahweh, shall eat the most holy things. There they shall lay the most holy things with the grain offerings, the sin offerings, the trespass offering, for the place is holy. When the Kohanim enter in, they shall not go out of the holy place into the outer court, but they shall lay their garments in which they minister there, for they are holy. Then they shall put on another garment, and shall approach that which is for the people." Now when he had finished measuring the inner house, he brought me out by the way of the gate, with faces toward the east, and measured it all around. He measured on the east side, and measuring reed 500 reeds, with the measuring reed all around. He measured at the north side 500 reeds, with the measuring reed all around. He measured on the south side 500 reeds with a measuring reed. He turned about the west side and measured 500 reeds with a measuring reed. He measured it on 4 sides. It had a wall all around it, and length 500, and the length 500, to make a separation before that which was holy and that which was common.